Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
So here's the now boarding. This is first edition. This is second edition. So whenever you see components on this side, it will be the first edition, and this side will be the second edition. First off, you can see the box. They kind of switched out the color. The artwork is the same. Now this box is quite a bit. It's a little bit longer, but it's also quite a bit thicker. Now this one, I kind of couldn't get everything back into it. It's open a little bit, but it's probably the way I stacked it. But you can still see that the box is a little bit thicker there that you're going to see. So let's open up the components and we'll see what's inside. The first thing you can kind of see here is neither game comes with an insert. So everything is just kind of packed in here, the best of my ability. I could probably tack this a little tighter, but I wanted things backed up. But there are no inserts. So let's take a look at the components themselves. The first thing we can look at is the pre-flight here. Both of these are, basically the same. There really isn't a whole lot of difference. They kind of sit on the board. I don't see any differences in the numbers right offhand. You can see here 10, 15, 20, 30 in the second edition, 10, 18, 20, 30 there. So a little bit of a balancing you're going to see within the games, but the components are exactly the same. So when you open it up, you're going to see pretty much the same picture. The components are a little different. For example, you'll have the same timer, amount of timers, etc. But it kind of goes through the same pictures here, and everything ends a little bit differently. You're going to turn the page. You can see that the organization, the pre-flight upgrades is at the top here. A little bit different. This takes you through 16 steps. This is going to take you through 13. Not a tremendous difference here. The filling of the books feel the same, and it kind of finishes up on the next page. So this one a little bit puts everything a little bit better organized, if you ask me. You can see some of the same pictures are being used, etc., and it takes you through. It's not a humongous difference in here. I think most of the rule changes have been for balancing or to clear things up. Things are a little bit different in setup in the second edition, and they tweaked a few things. Here's the first edition board. You can see it's kind of tiny as it sits on the board. And here is the second edition, which will dwarf it. So there have been some tweaks to some of the patterns that you'll see on the board, but you can definitely see that the second edition board is much larger. I felt like the first edition was a little too small for my taste and our board gaming and cooperative nature, but you can see here that this is much larger, although you still have the jaws there, the lobsters, etc. that you're going to see there on the board. Not a tremendous amount of difference, but a little bit of balancing done on the board, and it's much bigger. So these are the weather cards, etc. you're going to have here. Everything appears to be exactly the same. I don't see a whole lot of difference in these cards, the way they feel, or anything like that. So very, very similar. You're also going to get a bunch of these tiles that will be the planes that are made up, and these little passenger tiles. They appear to be exactly the same in both editions. I don't see any real difference in what you're going to be getting in these. The quality appear to be the same. I don't see a lot of difference. You can see there's icons on these, the numbers, etc., and the little pictures. All the art style is going to be the same. I don't see any difference between these at all. So the sand timers. This will be something you have a little different in. In the first edition, you have a 15-second and a 30-second timer. In the second edition, you only get a 30-second. I don't use these. I use my cell phone anyway. If you want a 15 and 30-second timer, that would be the first edition. If you want a second, only this, or you're not going to use it at all, then you go with the second edition. So the little cubes that they're using seem about the same. The little planes that you're going to have seem about the same shape and size. The little tokens that they seem to match up perfectly. It's almost as if, with a few minor changes, that they just decided to press the print button and print over the first and second edition again. And finally, we come to the tile components. They look exactly the same to me. Very thick, very nice quality. Once again, I think they didn't make any changes to this. They probably just pressed the print button. So that is now boarding a look at the components. So what are the main differences? You're going to get some tweaks a little bit here. You're going to get a different color scheme on the box and a little bit larger of a box. The remainder of the components, you're going to lose one timer with this one, but I don't use that anyway. I use my phone. The rest of the components seem to be pretty much a reprint and not necessarily a second edition, but there's little changes, little balancing things, the bigger board, lack of a timer. Those little things will change things up just enough where if I was picking between these two, I'd probably recommend this. But if you're not going to play it a lot, those little tweaks may not matter to you. I don't even know if you've noticed any of them. So this might be the better edition to go to. It is a little smaller for box. You do get the extra timer with it. I don't know that you would really honestly notice. This is one of the few ones I would say this one, I guess, because it has the tweaks, it has the bigger board. I like that. But this is about as close to a toss-up as you can get. Now boarding first edition versus the second edition.